You've been lied to. What's that all about? You've been lied to. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. So I just want to go back and follow up a little bit with the talk that we had last week, Easter Sunday, and we talked about Jesus and what an amazing example that he showed us, and about how he never forgot those 4 important items. He never forgot who he was. He never forgot that he was connected. He never forgot that God's always present. And the very last thing he does, he never forgot to trust. He always trusted. He always knew no matter what was going on in his life, no matter how crazy everything out there seemed, he trusted there was a plan. And there was a reason for it. And it wasn't because he did anything wrong. It's not because he was a sinner. It's not for anything other than his soul needed to go through the experience of whatever he was going through. And he trusted. And he paid attention, and he was conscious, and he tried to learn. Because he knew if he were to pay attention and learn, that whatever it was that he was going through, he could move through it faster. He could move through it faster. And so following up with that, I want to go back to that thought. He always remembered who he was. Who are you? Who are you really? That's the question to be asked. Who are you? So how many people were here a couple of years ago when Leah and I did some presentations or workshops on self-love? How many people by chance? There's a handful of you there. Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit and talk about this because it's pretty fascinating when you look at it. In terms of trying to understand, well, who are we? What's going on here? And so, let's see. It worked. Can everybody see this? That's pretty cool, huh? Technology is an amazing thing. All right. So I want to go back to the very, very beginning, right? And that's up here. So we come into this world and understand we're coming from spirit. We're perfect, we're whole, and we're complete. And then, of course, we're in our mother's womb. And just understand, when we're in that womb, we are still perfect, whole, and complete, and we are totally connected. And anything that we want, any desire that we have, any food that we need, anything that we need, we're connected. We're connected to our mother through the umbilical cord. So we're in this perfect environment where we're just hanging out, floating around, and everything is great. We are totally connected, right? But then what happens? We're born. And the first thing that happens when we come out, what do? Snip. They snip the umbilical cord. And it's at that moment when all of a sudden, that understanding that we're always connected and everything that we need, want, or anything, we can have with just a thought. That's all it takes. And the minute they cut it, what do? We start crying. And why do we start crying? Because we're not happy, because we have now other wants or needs. We're cold, we're this, we're hungry, we're that. And at that moment, we, as a human being, as a species, begin the process of starting to look outside of ourselves for all our wants and all our needs. That's what we're taught. We're no longer connected, and we soon start to forget about this piece inside of us. And so we start to focus and we start to learn everything that we want and need is outside of us. Everything. From our support to our love to everything is outside of ourselves. And so what happens is there starts to become this split. And as we look, we start to form what's called a personality. There's nothing wrong with the personality. Sometimes people will talk about the personality being the ego or whatever you want to call it. I don't care whatever you want to call it, but it's just the personality. Just understand that that personality is only a part of us. But what happens is, as we go throughout life, we are taught, because of the society that we're living, that that's what we should be focusing on. The personality is what we should be focusing on. All along, guess what? There's another part of us. Spirit. Spirit. And so that never goes away, guys. Ever. It's in each and every one of us. And so what happens is there becomes, I used to think it was age, but the truth is it's not age. So I used to sit there when I would explain this and say, yeah, we start off up here, and as time goes on, we become more and more have the separation. That's not necessarily true. My observation has been a lot of things can cause this degree of separation. We go through a hard time. We go through a divorce. We go through financial struggles. We go through addiction. We go through all these things that life throws at us, and it can cause this degree of separation here. But the key with the whole thing is that we start paying attention. A lot of us fall into this trap of paying more attention to the personality and less attention to that. So, question. Not a question, excuse me. And as a result of paying attention to the personality, this chart basically is one based off of behavioral psychology. It's how we work. It's how we as the human beings, we have these operating systems. We all have this operating system. And just the basics, without spending a lot of time, it starts off with this idea of the subconscious perceptions or how we are experiencing something. It all comes down to what our perceptions are that are programmed at a very, very young age. And as a result of those perceptions, guess what happens? We have thoughts, and our thoughts are always trying to prove our subconscious right. Our thoughts are always trying to prove our subconscious right. That's what it's doing. As a result of those thoughts, we have feelings. And as a result of those feelings, then we start to have experiences based off of those thoughts. And basically, that experience just reinforces the subconscious. And this loop just keeps going on and on and on and on. And that's how everybody in the world works. That's how we all work. Which can be a good thing, or it could be a bad thing, right? Could be either one, depending on what those are, your subconscious perceptions. So question then, and knowing that these perceptions are there, where do you think your self-perceptions come from? From the spirit or from the personality? I think everybody pretty much is in agreement that it comes from the personality. So our own self-perceptions come from the personality. Question for you. Where do you think those perceptions came from? Did they come from you? They didn't. They did not. They came from our environment. And so what's happened is everybody in this room, everybody on this planet, we were all grown up in an environment, and that environment is basically dictated who and what we think we are. That's just the way it works, folks. It's not right. It's not wrong. There's no judgment. But when we think about that our self-perceptions about who and what we are come from our environment. Question for you. What's our environment telling us about us? What's our environment tell us about who we are? Not good enough? Yep. You create it, I get it, but what specifically is our environment telling us about ourselves? There's a lot of things it tells us about us. What else does it say about us? That we all need to be a certain way? Yep. We've got to fit in. You're not smart enough? Absolutely. You have to work for your good? Yep. There's not enough. Lack consciousness. There's not enough. Yeah.
Being nice to people.
What's that?
Being nice to people, being kind.
Being kind? Okay. Yeah.
That's what the environment is brought up in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want you to think about the different environments. And don't just think about where you were born and raised, but think about the other environments around the world. And what are the messages that the places that these people are living, what is it telling them? Are they good enough? Are they worthy? Should they be respected or listened to? Do they matter? Yeah. And so what's happening is these messages are being fed to all of us at a very young age, and without going into too much psychology here, but the truth is that up into a certain age, we have no ability to block what we're being told about who and what we are. No ability. And we're like sponges. We take it in. And so we're being fed this and fed it over and over and over again. There's these perceptions that are formed. So we're looking around and we're trying, we're coming down to this planet. We're like, what on God's green earth is this? Who am I? And we start looking outside of ourselves to determine who and what we are. And our environment is going to let us know who and what we are. Are we worthy? Are we lovable? Are we good? Are we bad? Are we worthy? All these things. It's going to fill in for us. And we just sit there and we take it all in. And for some of us that are very fortunate and blessed, we're born in these amazing families with amazing parents and amazing relatives and amazing teachers and mentors and people. And they're able to help us understand on a deep level, and we're able to connect, and we have that with us. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I should say, for a lot of us, that's not exactly the case. That's not exactly what happened. Right? Anybody in that boat? I am. Well, I think talk to just about 99% of humanity is what I would say. I don't think it really differentiates between necessarily the religions. But what I want to talk about specifically, though, today, in terms of you've been lied to, is what do you think the personality tells you about your divinity? Zip. Most of the time. And if it's anything at all, it's usually not very pretty. Right? You're not divine. You're flawed. How convenient that the Bible at the beginning of it has something called original sin. It means we don't have a shot on God's green earth of getting out here alive. I'm screwed. What do I do with that? No matter what you've done, just because you're breathing, you screwed that up. I can't even breathe? I can't breathe. No, because you're flawed. Original sin. That's what we're told in a lot of traditional religions. Right? You're not perfect, whole, or complete. You're not. So again, we're flawed. No matter what we try and do, there's nothing we can do about that. Yep. You can't change. You are what you are. You're never going to change. How many of us heard that one? Yep. Yep. So you can't change. And you're not connected. In other words, there's not a part of you that can connect to anything that's bigger than you. You're not connected to yourself. You're not connected to each other. You're not connected to Source, the divine. You're not connected to anything. And so you're on your own. You're by yourself. How does that feel? I'm all by myself. How many people have ever had a time in their life when they felt like they were all alone? We all have. We've all felt like there's been moments in our life where there was nothing else. I know I've been there. It's not a very fun spot to be at all. Right? Now, thank goodness there's another part of us called spirit. The part that hasn't gone anywhere, and it's got a little bit of a different idea or thought about who and what we are. So, class, what does spirit have to say about all this? You are perfect. I love it. You're connected. Love it. You're divine. Love it. Wow, you guys are doing pretty good. It's awesome. What else? You're loved. Oh, yes, so much so. Oh, you have no idea how much we are loved. None. No limitations. You're not alone. Ever. There's no original sin. Can you change? Anytime you want. Anytime that you want. Right? Yeah, what else?
You're worthy.
You're worthy. Of course you are. You're the child of God. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. What else? Anything come to mind?
Not guilty.
You're not guilty? Yep. 0. Any shame or blame? 0. No shame, no blame. None. We're all connected. Yes, we are. Yep. Yeah. So, you're divine. You're perfect, whole. You're complete. You're not your past. You're not your past. You're not. You're connected. Right? See a little bit of a difference? So your self-perception, there's a little bit of a battle going on, in case you hadn't figured that out. Spirit's saying you're divine, your personality's saying, no, you're not. You're flawed. Spirit's saying you're perfect, whole, and complete. Your personality's saying, no, you're not. Spirit's saying you're not your past. Your personality's saying you can't change. Spirit's saying you're connected, and the personality's saying there is no connection. There's no connection with yourself. There's no connection with each other. There's no connection with your divinity. And understand this conversation is always going on inside of our head. Which one do you think is the loudest?
Ego.
Yeah. Whoop. Yeah. Personality. Personalities is. And guess what? We all bought this. We all bought it. And literally, thank God, thank Spirit, that there's been those brave few that have had the courage to stand up and go, I think you're looking at this a little bit wrong. And then they started to remind us, well, what's really going on and what are we really capable of? And then they started teaching us ways to be able to move into that space, to hold that space, to understand that it's simply a matter of being in the present moment with yourself, connecting with the divine, and just remembering who and what you are, and then everything can change. In an instant. In an instant, it can change. Question for you. Oh, going back into it, just so the different perceptions, again, what's controlling everything that we do? These subconscious perceptions. So if we're rattling around, walking around, and we've got all of this going on in terms of these things that we're telling ourselves over and over and over again, guess what? It's our thoughts. Everything that we think about is going on over and over and over, repetition, 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 until all of a sudden we have the awareness that we can do something about that. That we don't have to be Pavlov's dog. That we don't have to hear the food hit the pan and all of a sudden our mouth starts watering. That we can actually stay in the moment and be conscious, and we can separate ourselves from the thoughts that are going on, and we can decide what of it we want to take in and what we don't want to take in. We can do that. You are perfectly capable. Not only that, it's who and what you are. When you slow down enough to get that, to understand it, to realize that. You mean I can really do that? I can really change? Of course you can. In a moment, you can change. In a moment, you can change, right? Question for you. So what's the impact? What's the impact of all those perceptions? What's the impact of that? What's the impact of this in your life?
Makes it a constant
Stuck. It's constant what, Tony?
struggle.
Constant struggle. Yep. How many people have felt stuck? How many people have struggled? Yeah, we're all there. That's why we're here. Awesome. And some of us still struggle. That's just real, right? That's the way it happens sometimes. Because what's happening is we're going back into the old patterns of thinking, and we just get stuck in that loop because our subconscious is still trying to tell us who and what we aren't. That's what's going on. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we all have, right? We've all been there. Understand that these perceptions are the things that impact every single thing in our lives. Who and what you are, and your perceptions of who and what you are, and the lie that you've believed is that you're not divine. That's the lie. And it's been perpetuated from generation to generation to generation to generation to generation. And still going strong, although I have to admit, in my opinion, in my observation, there are some serious chinks in the armor. We're starting to wake up, guys and gals. We're starting to become more conscious. There's more of us that are waking up to this message every single day. I don't care what the media is trying to tell us in terms of how screwed up everything is. In my vision, in my opinion, we've never been more enlightened as a race. I see stuff all the time, where people are waking up, people are forgiving, people are trusting, people are taking chances, people are actually having this amazing message that they want to come out and share with the world, and they're actually doing it. And it may not be pretty and it may not be perfect, but they know that deep down inside of them they got something to say, and they're having the courage now to actually start doing it and trying to express whatever that is that's inside of them. And in my opinion, that's exactly what we're doing here. That's what this space is going to be. This is what we, as a family, this is what we, as a community, are going to do. We're going to walk around, we're going to remind each other of who and what we are. That's what we do. And we share with each other, and we just be with each other as we go through this process together. But your perceptions impact literally everything. I cannot tell you what a huge difference that makes in everything. How many people know that you have a perception on your age, and based on how old you are, here's a list of things that are supposed to happen? How many people knew that? Yeah, we do. Why? Because we've seen everybody else go through aging. So everybody else, that means when I hit this age, then this is supposed to happen. And when I hit this age, then this is supposed to happen. And then when I hit this age, this is supposed to happen. Guess what happens when we have perceptions? You are energetic beings. You are energy, pure energy. You attract. That's what we are. We're magnets. So there's energy. So you've got all of these perceptions, and we could go, and we're going to, by the way, in the class, we're going to start taking a look at our perceptions, all of them, and really look at them and see, okay, what's in there? What are my perceptions? Because it impacts everything. So if you're walking around saying, well, I'm 55 years old, and I guess stuff should start breaking down, isn't that what, but no, seriously, isn't that what we do? Yeah, everybody's laughing that's over 55 because that's what we start thinking. And guess what? And so we're energy, so then all of a sudden the universe goes, well, I guess if that's what they want, they don't have to, but okay, if that's what you want, right? Folks, it impacts everything. We're trying to do some amazing things at this church, but you know what happens? Every single one of us, everybody in this church family walks in those doors and they have a perception of what should be going on in these four walls. And that perception is impacting everything that we're trying to do. And I want you to be aware of it. when you walk in here, I'm going to ask you to seriously consider sitting down for a minute and maybe writing down your thoughts about what your perception is about what we're up to. And maybe coming up with a new thought or a new idea. I've always believed that unity could be the shining beacon on the hill. I have since the day I walked in here 40 years ago. And I believe we have the potential to be the brightest, or one of, the brightest stars, the brightest beacon, the brightest way for people to come in these doors and get this thought or this idea of remembering who they are. But when we walk in those doors, sometimes, and this is the thing that's crazy about perceptions, is that almost always based on historical data. It's based off historical data. So all of our perceptions are always going like, well, the reason I believe this is because this, and this. And so what happens is, I just want you to understand, energetically, whenever you walk into or you're dealing with that moment, energetically, you're walking into not being present. There's energy that's holding you back, and you can't show up in present. Why? Because of all these perceptions that you have that you don't even know that you have, and you don't even know who put them there. That's the most ridiculous thing. We don't even know who put them there. But it wasn't us. In most cases, it wasn't. We have the ability to change. We have the ability to change our perceptions on a lot of things. Not just about who and what we are, but I would say, start there. Who are you? Who are you really? Are you the son or the daughter of the divine that's loved, that's cared for, that's heard, that knows that you're important, that knows that you're needed, that knows that you can be listened to and heard, that knows that there's this connection that's going on, and this thing called God or Spirit or whatever it is that you want to call it actually interacts with you and wants to interact with you and is trying to interact with you? Because it is. But if we've got all this historical data, if we have this perception that we're not worthy, or somehow we have made such an egregious error in our lives that I just don't even know if it could be forgiven, just understand that it's okay and just be gentle with yourself, but also remember that's not what the divine's thinking. The divine is totally present, 100%. Every single moment. Deepak Chopra says you're in the moment where you have pure potentiality. Feel that for a second. What does it feel like to stand in pure potentiality? There are no limits. And that's where the divine takes us if we're willing to go there. But when we have these perceptions that, well, I screwed this up, or I messed this up, or I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I'm too tall, or I'm too short, or I'm too fat, or I'm too skinny, or I'm white, or I'm black, or I'm Jewish, or I'm Muslim, and fill in the blanks where all this crap comes from. And it's anything less than you're perfect, whole, and complete. Right now, there's a part of you inside of you that's perfect, whole, and complete. It's never been flawed. You cannot screw it up. Can't. Not possible. Not. And yet, we forget. And if we would just take a minute or take some time to write down what those perceptions are and just understand, wow, where did this come from? I promise you, if you'll go through that exercise, you will understand that your perceptions were because of the past. It's not because of who and what you are as an adult right now. Although, if you've been so entrenched into believing some things, which was what happens, but the truth is, the divine is just looking at you, glowing at you in complete adoration. just telling you that you're loved. And then, what do you want to do? And then, let's do it. Let's go. And whatever that looks like for you. And so the thing is to understand that these perceptions that you have energetically impact everything. Everything. And just to take the time and slow down and maybe start looking at them. And that's what we're going to be doing in the class. Is this making sense? You get it? You guys are pretty amazing. You're really beautiful. I just want you to know that. Really. Each and every one of you. Each and every one of you. You shine. I sit up here and I just see shine, 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 shine. You guys are amazing. And my hope and prayer is that you remember that. Don't let anybody, especially yourself, ever tell you you're less than. Ever. I don't care what's going on in your life. I don't care if it's a health challenge. I don't care if it's a financial challenge. I don't care if it's a relationship challenge. I don't care what's going on. It's okay. You haven't lost your divinity. Impossible. Don't ever forget that. By having that one little thing, if you can remember that one little thing, you can change the world right now. You have that kind of power. We have that kind of power. It's just a matter of remembering that. Cool. Any questions? You good? You guys are amazing. Thanks. Thanks. If we could have the ushers come